Hello and welcome back to the Arcane Forge, and welcome back to the Drawtober challenge, a challenge where I'll be drawing every single day for 31 days throughout the month of October, using randomly generated prompts, which you're very welcome to follow along and draw with me. Hopefully I'll show off some of your artwork at the end of the month, if you send it through to my email, or if you tag me in Instagram. Links to those are down below. But day 6 features the prompt word, create. So grab yourself a cup of tea and let's get started. So I really liked drawing this one today, actually. It didn't turn out quite how I'd pictured that it would, but it was still really nice to do. My plan here was to illustrate a tiefling creating a sword, like kind of pulling it magically out of his hand. Here, kind of warlock pact the blade style, like I suppose summoning, but more so kind of like drawing in natural or perhaps eldritch fragments of magical energy to form this sword out of thin air. And so what I'll do during this, actually it's probably better to talk about what I intended to do. So what I'd initially planned when I sketched this out was to have kind of like flakes of black material, kind of like little, what would you call it, like shards of gold leaf or something like that, little black strands, little shadowy, kind of like, I guess, little flakes of ash or snowflakes or something along those lines, drifting towards the back of this character's right hand, wherein he was using magic to kind of combine all of these elements into a sword that he was slowly pulling back, again, magically. And to some extent that is visible here. I'm really happy with the sword design, for example. It's very kind of spiky and crazy, and there's lots of fun little eye motifs. I imagine they'd actually be like real functioning eyes that would look around and be examining their creator. But in terms of this kind of drawing upon magic, drawing upon these kind of like flakes, I guess, of magic, I tried to create that impression by using sort of ink splatters and of various different sizes, and drawing a few sort of little bits here and there, the odd shape here or there. The initial sketch, I think, actually conveyed this a lot better than my end result. I'm very happy with the drawing, it just didn't turn out how I imagined. So I kind of splattered all this ink all over the place to be these kind of like small motes, I think is the word I'm looking for, motes of kind of eldritch ash that are being drawn to this guy's hand to form this sword. And I think, the way I went about it was by masking off with masking fluid certain parts of the drawing so that it would look like there was a kind of focal point that these motes were being drawn towards, which worked out quite well. Although upon removal of the masking fluid, it did remove quite a lot of the initial sketch lines, so I had to kind of make up a lot of the drawing on the fly without access to a sketch after I'd removed it. But I knew roughly what I was going for anyway. But I think the splatter that I used, these kind of dribbles and splotches and so on, by virtue of the kind of runniness of them and the way that I applied them, ended up looking like they were being pushed away because of the nature of the splatter. These kind of like larger blobs and then little blobs behind them and stuff like that showing motion, which is not something I'd accounted for. I suppose I'd kind of assumed that it would look like that, but it's one of those things that like water and stains and inks and all this kind of stuff is something we're so familiar with that it's sort of hardwired into us to kind of know the trajectory of an ink blotch, if that makes sense. Like when you see a drawing of a face and the face isn't just kind of isn't quite right. That's called the uncanny valley and relates to a kind of a chart, I suppose, a table which shows that we can associate and empathize with characters who have either strikingly human features or strikingly non-human features There's a little peak in the middle as well between those two, but anything that is not very human or completely non-human, we find it very hard to relate to, because we are, we're so familiar with faces, we're looking at them all the time. There's several special parts of the brain which are which deal with recognizing facial features and stuff like that. So it's hardwired into us to recognize facial features. And when things are kind of just off, it's so much more noticeable than any other part of the body, or, any things that we're sort of not biologically wired to recognize. So I feel like the ink splotches are sort of in that same vein, in that they don't quite make sense. And I tried to kind of make up for that by having a few sort of relying on techniques that I would maybe use in Photoshop now, where I would kind of draw a bit of a line to indicate movement, to kind of like, look, it's going here, follow this line, this is where, it's traveling. But that kind of actually only furthered this idea that the blotches were moving away. So in the end, it does look pretty good. I'm very pleased with it. I enjoyed drawing this one. I really like the character, actually, that I created here. I could see him being an NPC, a kind of tiefling smith who makes magical weapons, like kind of evil or eldritch magical weapons. Maybe he's a bit misunderstood. Maybe he's something that your rogue or your warlock would want to go to. Maybe it's just another way of creating weapons, and they look a little bit weird, and they do kind of like necrotic damage, or, all this kind of stuff. But most adventurers shy away from him just because he's making these kind of like obsidian weapons out of thin air, and it's all a bit mysterious and creepy. They will have eyes in them and stuff, so that's super duper creepy. But I really like the kind of, I went for some very insane jewellery around his neck, and he's got some really cool earrings and kind of like a horn ring as well. So yeah, I really like this character. I can kind of picture him, imagine him having quite a smoky voice, like an ashen voice to go alongside these motes of ash that he's drawing into his weapons. I'm kind of picturing a Sam Elliott kind of voice for this guy, or something like that I couldn't hope to replicate. But yeah, so I really like this drawing. This is actually, I know I've been very critical of it just because of this one feature, but I did actually really enjoy it. It was just a shame that I couldn't quite recreate what I had in my head for these motes of ash or ink to form this blade, to create this blade. It's one of the very few downsides of using analog kind of drawing techniques. If I was on Photoshop, I could just go like, cool, that didn't quite work out how I wanted. How can I either edit that, or, scrap that and have another go, or, draw this on another layer and, experiment with layering different stuff on top of it or underneath it or whatever. But obviously you can't on an analog drawing. And with that in mind, I'm actually quite happy with this, because, you only get one chance to do this kind of thing. And I don't want to overwork the drawing. I think that's something that can be very problematic. So yeah, I think I will leave it there, and I'm satisfied with this. It's been another chance to learn some things about the techniques that I want to employ in these drawings. I think I've whittled on for quite enough. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you had a good time drawing the word create as well, if you're drawing along with me. Be interested to see what you guys come up with. But in the meantime, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for day 7. Oh, the end of the first week. There we go. Wow, I've completely lost track of time in this whole lockdown thing. So yeah, end of the first week. Have a good day, guys. Bye.